Orion splashed down from its first 3,600-mile space flight off the coast of San Diego Friday night and was brought ashore last night before its transport to Cape Canaveral for performance test. Joining me with a look at the future of space exploration are my guests, Stephen Snyder, Executive Director of the Reuben H. Fleet Science Center, and Francis French, Director of Education at San Diego Air and Space Museum and author of several books on space exploration. And welcome.
Thank you.
Now, Francis, you were at Naval Base San Diego last night when it came ashore. Describe that for us.
It was a wonderful feeling after the smoke and the fire and the drama of the launch in Florida that other people saw. This was kind of like that moment at the airport where a family member comes and everybody's really happy and proud to see them and embraces them in a big warm hug. It was just a very proud moment for San Diego. A lot of Navy people, NASA people, very excited to see this spacecraft come back to dry land.
And not open to the public. It was done in the middle of the night.
It's always interesting to be whisked into a naval base in the middle of the night and have the dogs check out your car and all that security stuff and be taken over to the secret spaceship. It was very exciting.
You know, NASA launched Orion last week for this flight. How high did this capsule climb, and what was the purpose of this test flight?
This spacecraft went into deep space, so that's a good way out towards the moon to make sure that it could come back through the atmosphere at very high speed, also test out all kinds of equipment inside, make sure the parachutes work, make sure it could go through the radiation belts around our planet. A lot of stuff you want to do and test a spacecraft before you put people on it.
Yeah, and we're looking at the video actually of it taking off, and it's a very sleek design on this. And Steve, Orion's journey into deep space was a test, as we had mentioned, a test flight, and I understand it had more than 1,000 sensors on board. What kind of information are NASA scientists hoping to glean from this test flight?
Well, this is a test flight, so they want to check every system they possibly can as this capsule goes up. What goes on with the conditions inside the capsule, just outside the capsule. How does the heat shield perform? How do the electronics inside this capsule perform when we take it all the way out into space, through the radiation belts, out and back again, and then through hitting the atmosphere at 20,000 miles an hour? How does it all perform all the way down before we think about putting anybody actually in one of these capsules?
Did anything go wrong, or was the mission considered a success?
They have been extremely excited by how well the system performed. I think everyone's been really pleased. Obviously, they'll take the capsule back to see if there's anything else that turns up in it. But so far, so good. It's a really, really exciting start.
Well, and Francis, a lot of people are familiar with the space shuttle program, so how is this different?
It's almost like going back to the Apollo design of having a sort of a gumdrop-shaped spacecraft coming back under parachutes, splashing in the ocean. In fact, I was kind of having flashbacks to some of the Apollo 13 movie I've seen and things like that. It looks so much like Apollo. It is a very simple, tried and tested design that we know is going to work. But inside the spacecraft, as Steve was saying, it's very cutting-edge 21st century electronics. So 60s on the outside and future on the inside.
I like that. Now, Steve, some San Diego companies were actually involved in developing these many high-tech components that were in the spacecraft. Tell us who was involved and what else can you tell us about it?
Well, sure. There was companies involved, San Diego Composites, who developed some of the materials that are used in between the two shells of the outer and inner shell of the capsule. There's a company that Rayotech that does windows. I think this is not just windows. It's not just down to the auto shop to pick up a window to replace it in. This is a window that has to be coated to be able to go out into space, handle the pressures, handle micrometeor fragments smashing against them. So a lot of high-tech materials went into this. Started in San Diego, and then, of course, last night, it all ended back in San Diego again.
So there's a real connection between the space program and San Diego. Do you anticipate it continuing?
Given the power of science and technology in San Diego, we're one of the top hubs in the country for this kind of work. That any science and technology, I would expect we'll be playing a major role in this as it moves forward.
Now, Francis, the cost of the Orion program is estimated in the tens of billions of dollars, but some people say we should spend money on things about Earth first. Why would this country and why should this country invest in a space exploration?
This is about Earth first. This money isn't thrown away in space. This is money being spent on the ground, doing some very cutting-edge, high-technology stuff that we need to develop our technology. And this is a great way of doing it for something peaceful, for something that's future and forward advanced. We're also looking at using the spacecraft to go out and explore asteroids. Some of these asteroids could be a major danger to Earth in the future, and we want to make sure we know how to glance them away from Earth. What if an asteroid was coming right towards us and was going to destroy our planet? We want to know how to do that, and this spaceship might be the solution to something like that.
And if all goes well, is there a timeline when the first astronauts might be able to climb on board?
It's going to be many years. There's a lot of very careful test flights to do in the meantime, and with budgets, it's also a little slower than we'd like it to be. But it's going to take a while, but eventually, hopefully, we're going to see people going back out into deep space for the first time since 1972 and the last moon landings.
And I understand the goal is to get the astronauts back into space and onto Mars.
The idea is after essentially living in space, homesteading space with the International Space Station, we're finally going to go back out into space and do some deep exploration again.
All right, Francis French and Steve Snyder, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.